Hello, everybody, and welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League. My name's Suj.
My name is James.
Gameweek's not finished, James, but we're
Who
10 out
gives
of
a
11
shit
games.
about that?
10 games out of 11 done. James obviously happy because Spurs beat City.
Woohoo!
Doesn't it feel like you're beating Mike Tyson when he's like 50 years old?
No, it's not quite the case, is it? They're still a top team, although they're not playing like one.
Nah, man.
Actually, to say they're not playing like
Pep's,
one, they're not playing like the Man City that we know, and I think
but it's
we'll
not
acknowledge
even
that.
that. Like, they're not being like, we don't know what Pep's trying to do with the way he's setting them up. Like, the first and foremost, if you don't set a team up to be in a position to play well, i.e., random players in random positions and not playing your best players, you're already at a disadvantage. Like, if you set the team up with the best possible team in the best possible formation, that's step one, and then they've obviously got to perform on the pitch. But if you take the jigsaw and try and fit the pieces in random places, picture's
But
never going to look good. It's so
you,
bizarre.
you know that Guardiola thinks that you pick the best team in the best system, don't you?
But I also think he started smoking weed or something. I don't know what. Honestly, I'm trying to find rhyme or reason in it. Like, Pep roulette has always been a thing, but in terms of changing the formation or the tactics so drastically, so often, feels really strange. It does feel like it's much more dramatic than it's been. Like, you can see always Pep roulette has been a thing, but then they've always had such good quality players.
They're clearly not at their best, but it doesn't mean that they can't still go on and win this league and stuff. Because
Look, they
obviously it's
weren't
a
at
huge
their
game from
best.
next week.
They weren't at their best when you played them at the Etihad, and we saw the
No,
second half, right? So I totally get that. It's just so confusing, but super result for you guys, and obviously Harry Kane joins the 200 club and the Spurs 267 club.
such a 200 club. I don't really care about that. It's the
Well, I think it's pretty important. There's only two other players that done it, right, in there?
Yeah, well, he'll overtake Rooney soon when he's only like 8 off Rooney. So
Yeah, yeah.
The Shearer record would be touch and go, when it depend on his fitness and what he
No,
decides to do with
because
his career.
goals at Bayern Munich don't count, do they? Towards
Well,
that, so.
exactly that, Suj. Yeah, exactly that. Goals at Manchester United might though.
Well, yeah. Although whether or not they need him now, they're doing pretty well themselves.
Yeah, they've got Veghorst. Yeah, they're fine.
Yeah,
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 that's the
Um,
long-term solution.
listen, buying Harry Kane at 30 is probably not a long-term solution for them. Mind. Anyhow,
It doesn't need to
anyhow.
be. They'll say they bought Van Persie for basically one season. They got good out of him, and it was worth the one good season. Now, anyway, not today. I'm so happy that he broke that record. I can't believe how emotionally it affected me, despite the fact I've known for months it was going to happen.
Yeah, it's a weird
It
one,
was
isn't it?
such a big
It's
deal.
inevitable, but yet it's still when it happens, it is a
You're
weight.
watching one of the most historic moments in your club's history, and the way it unfolded to actually win a big game like that. The goal mattered. He won the game. Yeah, it was just a brilliant day.
Nice. We should talk about our FPL weeks. Up until now, we've still got obviously the second Manchester United game and Leeds game to go on Wednesday. It doesn't matter though if we win FPL, does it, James? It doesn't matter if we win, does it, James?
Well, what I was going to say is this is our excuse. We aren't trying to win because you don't get the fucking prizes anyway, basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, we should cover that off quite quickly. Michael Keane, who won FPL 2 years ago, as in first overall, he tweeted last night, said, "Such a pity I didn't get to see Harry Kane break the Spurs goal scoring record today. Yet another of the countless games I've requested for winning FPL in 2021 that was rejected. Don't want to burst the dream, but you certainly don't get a game of your choice," which isn't great. And then Jamie Piggott, who obviously guested with us last summer when I asked him about his overall wank rather than his overall rank, he replied and he said he's still waiting as well. Hasn't heard anything. So yeah, it's not a good look. So if you're listening at the Towers, you can probably already see on the Bird app that people are not happy. So sort your shit out and get Michael and Jamie tickets, please.
Yeah. If it was difficult, I don't know what could be difficult.
No, it's a nonsense. Let me
It
tell you
is, isn't
honestly,
it?
truthfully,
It's
because
crazy.
even at Tottenham yesterday, right? They say VIP and stuff. Even at Tottenham yesterday, there's no way every VIP ticket is taken. No way. No way. And that'll be the same at the rest of the big six clubs. I'm not talking about this empty seat, just in the VIP.
Yeah, the
Just say
boxes
you
and all
can't
that.
just say you can't get tickets and that. It's bullshit. So it sounds like from what Michael's saying, like forget the idea of going to see a big six team or so like that's not on. You can get it. You're the bloody Premier League. Stop pissing about.
Exactly. It's the fucking
Yeah,
organization. It
exactly.
feels crazy. It really does. And yeah, there's better prizes available elsewhere, James. 50 grand and all that. Tune in
Well, to be
Wednesday for
honest,
that.
we've
They're
criticised.
not much better.
Well, no, we have criticised Sky in the past
Yeah.
for like not being quick in terms of releasing funds for winning players, but I've never heard of a case yet where someone hasn't got it.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
would seem to
And
get it. It just
obviously,
seems to take a while.
when you're talking about large sums of money and thousands of pounds, if they want to
Yeah.
take a month to wait for due diligence and making sure everything pans out right and whatever checks they want to do, I don't mind a month or whatever. But yeah, not getting your tickets is a real shame.
Anyway,
And
that's why me and
let's
Suj
see.
don't try much in FPL, which is the same
No, well,
gag, by the way, that everybody is putting right now. That's why I don't try and win it.
yeah.
I
So
liked one response. Someone said to Michael said, "Fuck off, mate. You got a sponge ball. Aren't you happy?" Like
stressful. Yes. I made 2 transfers, James, this week.
How did it go?
I sold Miguel Almiron
Okay.
For Bukayo Saka because
Okay.
obviously the best
Yeah.
team, like as you said on the Diff show, the best team in the league are playing the worst team in the league. And
I'm not the one.
You weren't talking about City Spurs either.
I think I told you that it might be a tough day. I wasn't the one sitting there going, "Oh, Arsenal will smash
4-0.
them on Saturday."
Yeah. But you did say it's the worst team playing, and also obviously Arsenal got the double coming up, and then Almiron blanks in 25. So
Can I just say that's still my opinion, by the way, that
best
the worst team in the league just beat the best team in the league. That's still my
and that's
opinion.
why it's the Premier League. But yeah, Saka sets me up obviously for the double, and Almiron's got a blank in a couple of weeks, so that made sense. And I had to sell Cancelo. I didn't have to, but I did. I bought Lewis, who has been getting rave reviews, but obviously then got pushed out from right back to left back and wherever else as a third City. I just didn't know which other Man City I would have wanted, but I feel like going with the cheap one was an all right shout in the end. But I benched Lewis anyway. I wasn't playing him. I ended up with Kepa's 10-pointer, Luke Shaw with a 5-pointer.
Kepa, fuck's sake, Kepa, man.
He's a beast, isn't he? Ben White and Trippier.
It's all right for you. I sold the prick 3 weeks ago.
No returns elsewhere out of Trippier, White, Saka, Martinelli, De Bruyne, and Haaland. Martial hasn't got any minutes yet, but you never know if he gets on against Leeds. My only returns, James, were Kepa, Luke Shaw's assist, Harry Kane, obviously with the goal and 2 bonus points, and then Marcus Rashford's 12 points as triple captain as a 36-pointer with the second game to go. I've got triple United left: Shaw, Rashford, Martial.
I mean, it's a great return for Rashford's triple captain as anything that was in midweek's bonus. We've said you get 10 or more, you're happy to sit on 12 with a game. I'm
greedy now, though. I'd like another 3 points, so to make it 15.
Course. I wouldn't. I'd rather Leeds went there and won, but you know where my allegiances lie first and foremost. Although I certainly wouldn't hold my breath on that. Who's your first sub if Martial?
Rico Lewis, just 2 points.
Okay,
my whole bench is 2 points, mate. Nothing special on there.
What's your thoughts on that? I got to be honest. We obviously didn't have the information that Martial.
I heard that he was available.
Yeah, he was. And then Ten Hag said, like, once the team lineups were announced, he was like, he had a setback. So listen, to be fair, it could have been Friday afternoon after he's done his press conference. We don't know, right? Or, as ever, if no one's asked the right questions, then you don't get the right answers. So my general advice to people is like, look, I don't think he'll start the first game, but by Wednesday, that might be completely different. Do you really want to take hits to shove that out? I mean, in your position, you still want him to play, didn't you?
Yeah, I'd rather he played against Leeds. Now, if you'd have said to me, though, he's doubtful, you'll only get sub minutes in the first game, but he'll play all of the second, I wouldn't have taken a hit to get him out.
Exactly that, yeah.
I wouldn't have taken a hit to get him out.
So, I took a -4. I sold Cancelo. Rodrigo's injury opened the door for me, ironically, and did me a favour. And I sold Mitrovic, so nothing cost from what I sold. I bought Wilfred Gnonto, I bought Bruno Fernandes, and I bought Nathan Ake in. I benched Ake. So a little bit like usage. I mean, it's ironic. I've had a big jump in rank, obviously because of Rashford.
Triple captain, but
It's
no
only
returns.
on top of that, all I've got is Fernandes 10
Yeah,
and Kane 8.
yeah,
That's it. And all the people in my deadline stream, shall I bench Harry Kane? No, I told you, never do that.
yeah.
Never,
Why? That's
never
mad.
do that. Yeah, Harry Kane is fixture irrelevant.
Mm.
But yeah, on 68, 4 to go. So I've got De Gea, Rashford triple, Fernandes, and I've got Gnonto as well. The plan with Fernandes and getting him in, like I said, Rodrigo opened the door. It was kind of similar. Like with Rodrigo, I knew I'd be moving it on this week to Saka or Odegaard, most likely Odegaard because of the money. But obviously, that's opened the game up for me now by getting Bruno in, where I can now move Bruno to obviously Saka or Odegaard. And that's a definite this week, one or the other. And it's just probably a case of if I take -4 from Martinelli to the other, which I don't like in a sense, because I always say, like, and looking into the weekend, you think Martinelli against Coleman, like we've been making a deal with saying some of these opponents he's had at right back recently have been quite tough. But looking at that at the weekend, him getting hauled off on like 55 or whenever it was, like you can see that happening again. Whereas, with Saka Odegaard, in terms of expected minutes for the double, you're probably looking at sort of 165, 170 over the course. So you're nearly getting 2 full games, basically. And it could even be 180 plus, right? Including added time, obviously. Whereas Martinelli could be like an hour less than that, for example, or even that he decides to put Trossard in the team. So I feel like because there's 2 games, it feels more justifiable and it kind of, this is hindsight to Martial's injury as well. It feels more justifiable to take the -4 to get the best one. And right now, it is becoming clearer and clearer that Martinelli's under threat. I can't foresee going forward where Saka or Odegaard don't start games for Arsenal
Yeah,
in the Premier League. I
understood.
just can't foresee it. Whereas Martinelli can. And you could make a case. One of the blessings for Arsenal this year has obviously been they haven't changed the team much. But it might be becoming a little bit of a hindrance as well, where there might be a bit of fatigue sitting in. Martinelli, what got in the team last year, sort of October, November, I want to say.
Mm.
It's kind of like his first whole Premier League season, if you will. So it might be that he's fatiguing a bit as well. And you've got a replacement now there in
Yeah,
Trossard.
it's a very interesting, fair point. I didn't even ever think about. I was going to roll this week, mate, but I've got the exact money to do Martinelli to Odegaard, and that would be a free, not even a
For
hit.
free, I'd do it, I think, Suj.
Really?
And and it's not to say, like, I'm thinking of doing that for -4, Suj. It's not to say Martinelli can't outscore these guys. I just think the fact when it's 2 fixtures, I know that I've got to go in this route, right? Eventually,
Yeah.
if it's not now, it's in 3 weeks, it's 4 weeks. This is potentially coming a problem where I need to fix it. And like I said, unless they get injured, Saka and Odegaard are always playing at the moment. Whereas it's questionable on Martinelli. So it feels like I should probably take the -4. And I think that's probably what I'll do.
Okay.
Is remove Martinelli and Fernandes, get Saka and Odegaard. Then I've got a bit of money to sort stuff out heading into the blank, which isn't a huge problem for me. Because once I've sold Fernandes, I've only got 4 players between Manchester United, Newcastle, Brighton, and Brentford. One of them's a goalkeeper. So I don't actually have to do anything for 25, other than the fact I've got players in my team who could be rotation risks, like all 3 of my Manchester City players. And Bueno obviously didn't start for Wolves at the weekend as well, which we'll speak about. So, but I can focus on fixing those bits rather than having to fix the United Newcastle bit necessarily. I probably will sell Botman, actually, not this week, but going towards 25 and having 1 cover on the bench, I think.
Okay. I've got 4 in Rashford, Martial, Shaw, and Trippier. Martial's the one that will be on the chopping block. I'll get rid of him before 25. And I'm going to try and keep the other 3, but Luke Shaw would be next on the list. Rashford and Trippier are going nowhere. So it's Martial and Shaw. But I'll try and if I do the Odegaard move into the next game week, I'll try and roll into 25. Let's see where we get to. with that. Let's talk about some of these games, James and Ralph, and see if there's any takeaways or any interesting ideas around players and transfers that have come out of them. Friday night, Chelsea 0, Fulham 0.
Reece James is back.
Is that it?
FPL General's notifications were going off. And I know most people obviously don't have them at this stage, but some people obviously kept. And looking into this weekend, there was a lot of people looking at defensive reinforcements, people still stuck on Cancelo and stuff like that. And you knew that he was fit. And for those who'd held, I think it became a case where you think, I've got to hold him. And I've probably got to play him. And you knew what the likelihood was. I'd said to people on the deadline stream, I said, chances are it's only 45 minutes. You've got to be aware of that. I'm not sure that I'd necessarily start him.
I think it's worse.
But yeah, 59 minutes again. Absolutely brilliant. I really enjoyed this game, and I know most people didn't. I enjoyed it because I thought Fulham played really well. Not in terms of overly threatening offensively and stuff, but I like their pressure on and off the ball. There's a number of teams this weekend, Everton and Tottenham are two other examples of two teams who've really got the balance right of when to go and hunt the opposition and when to just sit off and be positionally and structurally correct. And they got that really right at the weekend. Chelsea had a couple of big chances, but other than that, I think the Fofana one in the second half when Leno come out, and the Havertz one in the first half when he lobbed it over Leno and hit the post. Other than that, Chelsea never really were going to score in the game. And there were a few outstanding performances. If you watched the game Friday night, and there was a lot of chat about Kenny Tete at right back, and he was excellent. But Anthony Robinson was outstanding on the other side as well. And repetitive theme for anyone who listens to our Sky pods. But I just absolutely love Paulinho. He's such a beast in the middle of that midfield. Yeah. Harrison Reed's complements that really well in terms of he made some interesting runs into the right-hand channel, which pulled Chelsea kind of left-hand side, weighted quite a bit during the game. Yeah, impressed with Fulham because I wasn't when they played us.
No, they weren't good against you. They weren't bad, but they were bad in the second half. But yeah.
Well, no, they started really well against us.
First half an hour, I thought they were okay.
Yeah, no, they were good in the first half hour, but then it seemed like their legs tired. This time they didn't. Structurally, really, really good off the ball. But it is obviously a couple of games without a goal for them. We do have Forest at home this week. So if I've just sold Mitrovic, but I think it was always one I'm looking at going, I don't really want to be without Mitrovic for this Forest fixture coming up, but you got to make sacrifices. It's worth saying there is a tougher run coming for Fulham. They've obviously got, I think they're really helped at the moment that they seem to pick the same team basically. So Diop or Adebayo at centre-back, otherwise they picked the same team. I think because they did 4 goals in the last 7. And one of the narratives pre-World Cup was very much that they're good offensively, but they're going to give you a lot of chances. Defensively, they're firming up, you know. Interesting.
You mentioned that 4 in the last 7's decent.
Yeah. Great. That's great for anybody, never mind a club like Fulham, for example. And they have had some odd difficult fixtures in there, such as Chelsea. And you have to remember, from a Fulham perspective, the Chelsea game is their massive game, right?
Yep.
And historically, I think they've only beat them 8 times in their whole history, I think. So the fact they've just taken 4 points off Chelsea over the last 3 weeks or so, they'll be absolutely delighted with that. I guess more the conversation here is around Chelsea. First and foremost, Kepa, who it's not just clean sheets, it's the shit that's coming with it. He's becoming problematic. It's 3 clean sheets in a row for Chelsea since I sold the bugger, as you are. I thought, oh, well, I'm getting 2 extra fixtures of David De Gea over this period, as you are. The irony as well is if I'd have kept Kepa, I'd have ended up forcing Luke Shaw in the team, wouldn't I? But then I'd be one less of City doubler now coming into this week, and now I can just fix the Arsenal issue. So there's always knock-ons to every transfer and stuff. But he's a super asset, isn't he, Suj? I mean, what's he got over the last 3 weeks? Is it 28, 29?
Every time I look at my team, I forget that I've got him in goal. And I'm like, he's got me 8 points. Oh, he's got me 9 points. But yeah, he's really good. So the last few
29
weeks,
over the last 3.
10, 10 and 9. It's bizarre. Like I suppose I don't expect those level of returns. If he just got me even 15 in that period, or 18, 3 clean sheets, I'd be happy with that. But it's 29. It's quite a big difference. So yeah, and his price is ridiculous. I mean, obviously, a lot of people jumped on him when he was 4.3, 4.4. I picked him up at 4.5. Set and forget.
Yeah, cheers, mate. Thanks. I mean, the other thing with him as well is, of course, he is great cover for game week 25 and game week 28 if you're looking to run through. And they do have good fixtures. But there were a few things I think we got offensively from the weekend that probably have put us off a little bit. So, as I said, other than the two big chances there, it never really looked like they were going to fill them up. Mudryk, first half, that wasn't the Mudryk we saw at Liverpool. And there was some rumours that actually might have been a little bit ill this week, but obviously was taken off at half time. So the idea of gambling on that, I guess particularly maybe going into Southampton game week 24, unless you see something against West Ham this weekend that makes you think, oh yeah, it's on, is probably avoidable. With those who've come back to fitness, the likes of James, obviously Ben Chilwell came on. Yeah, you're going to get a little bit where there's rest involved. And remember, Chelsea in the Champions League as well. And that's restarting. And their game against Dortmund is next midweek, isn't it? It's before they play Southampton. So is Reece James going to play West Ham, Dortmund, Southampton? I think he's probably not, for example. So I think in terms of steaming in, it's probably a hold off. Badia Shields obviously come in the team, and they've kept clean sheets in all three. It is worth pointing out that their opponents have been Palace, Fulham at home, and the Liverpool side that can't hit a cow's ass with a banjo at the moment. He's 5 million, Badia Shield. What's interesting about him as well is they've left him out the Champions League squad.
Yeah.
So if you're looking for a Chelsea, that's kind of the opposite of the Reece James. Unless Potter decides once Fofana's fit, and no, it's Fofana I want to play with Thiago, for example, then it looks like Badiashile will play the league games. But I'd be very conscious about that with Wesley Fofana, and he is back in training. It's close. So I'd be careful about that. So, I mean, if I had to buy a Chelsea player right now, I mean, it'd have to be Kepa. And I won't be stubborn about it. So if I decide that's the right choice in 24 or 25 right to go back, I may well go back. Although, I could rely on Danny Ward against Arsenal in game week 25. If I buy Kepa, you know what will happen, don't you?
Yeah, you can start conceding goals and Danny Ward will keep a clean sheet.
Well, I think Danny Ward 10-pointer against Arsenal, but I'll take that. Like, I'll take that for the team if it happens.
Unlikely.
It's beginning to feel more and more for Chelsea like the eggs might go in the Champions League. And they've got a winnable tie against Dortmund, are a good side, but they've got a very winnable tie there. It's beginning to look like they're going to have too many inconsistencies, I think, to try and catch Newcastle or Manchester United. I still wouldn't rule them out because I do think they've got a wonderful run of fixtures coming up where they would look at these games coming up and thinking they'll win 6 of the next 8 or so. But I don't think we have the faith in them right now to do that. Decent debut from Enzo Fernandez, who played as a kind of deep line 6, always head up, always wants to pass forward. Gallagher played a bit more advanced to that, and Mount a bit more advanced of that as well. Ziyech played, which was despite the obviously the falling through of the Paris Saint-Germain transfer, and he allows this kind of hybrid shift of system, but it didn't really happen in this game. No. And I think that was a lot because of Reece James, when sort of the right back / right-sided centre back has to do quite a lot of movement, and they played more like a flatter 4 for the majority of this game. In all honesty, the only Chelsea player I think I could buy if I had to this week would be Kepa. Fulham, there's obviously a good fixture there against Forest. I might play Pereira. I might play Pereira this week, is what I was going to say, Suj.
I'm not, but that's more because I've got benching Dolama's galore going into this week, so Pereira is likely to stay on the bench for me.
It's probably going to be a choice for me between Pereira and Botman. I've got Pereira in at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't play Pereira ahead of all my single game week fixtures. Rashford, Shaw, Trippier, or Kane. There's no way Pereira's getting in ahead of any of those guys.
Not for you, no. He might be for me with the way I've got it at the moment.
Everton beat Arsenal 1-0. A few guys I spoke to, that Gooners, are saying they didn't feel like they deserved anything from the game. It never really felt like it was coming. just didn't get out of first gear really. Whereas Everton, on the other hand, were much more energetic, and had much the better chances, and home crowd and that behind them, new manager bounce that we talked about. And then obviously I felt like it was 2018 or something with Sean Dyche's team with a Dwight McNeil cross for a James Tarkowski header. That you couldn't write that kind of stuff, could you? Really?
Well, you say you couldn't write that stuff, but FPL Raps, our good friend Ross, did write that because he wrote it at 9:43 in the morning, roughly 2 3/4 hours before kickoff. He just wrote goal Tarkowski, assist McNeil. So the only thing for Ross is obviously his time machine was roughly around about 43 minutes out. Because he got the wrong time of the goal. It was a bit less than that. But yeah, that's some foresight, Ross. Obviously, the Burnley connection. Yeah, of course. And actually, I had them on the background Saturday at Norwich as well. Very impressive. They're going to romp the Championship. One of the things I said to you they're
going to romp the Championship. They're already 20 points clear, mate.
I think it's 17 now, but with a game in hand as well. Yeah, I know.
I think they've romped it, mate.
Yeah, Burnley are coming back, and it's going to be a very different Burnley, by the way, as a pre-warning for people. Everyone thought it would be a 4-4-2 for Everton, because that's commonly what Sean Dyche teams do, but it wasn't quite. It was more of a 4-5-1/4-1-4-1. Idrissa Gueye played deeper than Doucouré and Onana. I don't know if Doucouré had a falling out with Frank Lampard. He's always been a player I thought was threatening in kind of an advanced midfield position.
I forgot he was there, and when SofaScore showed the lineup, they showed him in a 10 behind Calvert-Lewin as a 4-4-1-1 is how they described the lineup. Whether or not that's how they end up playing, you see, but it did make me think, oh yeah, what Doucouré was there.
Yeah, I mean, Onana was slightly more advanced of the two. I don't know if it just progressed. It was easier for Everton to build down that side. Interestingly, Sean Dyche changed it when there was a breaking play about 20 minutes in as well, where he swapped Iwobi and McNeil. And from that point, they started playing a little bit better, because I think then Iwobi and McNeil were prepared to carry down the flanks as more. I mean, we're so used to inverted wingers these days. And those who've listened to me for a long time will know when McNeil looked really promising at Burnley, I kept saying to Jack Toner, our Burnley correspondent, throw him on the right. But actually was great. Once they swapped over and he played on the left, that must have been his best performance for Everton. I imagine it was probably a lot of players who played at the wheel. It was probably their best performance for Everton. Idrissa Gueye, that was his best performance since he come back. Was quite assured in there, broke things up, a little bit no nonsense. It's certainly physicality and power if they play that way with a midfield three. And I think it's probably the best way for them to go is just play Calvert-Lewin on their own. The problem they'll face is, you have to remember this as well, Suj. People say, oh, like I had messages the weekend going, do you still think Everton will go down? And at the moment, I'd say yes, actually, because I think one result doesn't change the world. And I think the atmosphere was right in terms of get behind the team. There's obviously mass issues there between the fans and the board, but you know the quality of the opponent. And if you don't get behind the team, you're getting slaughtered. You're the one bit of advantage that you can give to your team, right, is to get behind them. And they certainly did that, actually. But they drew at City not long ago, Everton, under Lampard.
That was, but there's bodies on the line style defending that day.
But City didn't have many big chances in that game either, Suj.
No, but if you stick 10 men in and around the box, it does become very difficult. But
so I want to say, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but Everton's only results where they haven't lost since they drew at Fulham in game week 14 is against the top two. That barely makes sense, does it? I think Everton in this situation, for the likes of Tarkowski and Cody, who both played well at centre-back, that backs to the ball attitude that you mentioned at City, is the same for him here. But Arsenal didn't look like scoring at the weekend. Once Everton got in front, you didn't have that feeling of, oh, Arsenal are going to turn this around. Like, it didn't feel like that. Watching the game, it felt like Everton will probably hold on to this, which is huge credit to them. They got the pressing right. I spoke to you on Friday's differential show and said Burnley became a real pressing team under Sean Dyche. They got the balance right. And what really helped, those who've listened to us for a long time will know I used to speak a lot about Burnley and spatial issues between defence and midfield, where the midfield would go and press and the distances between midfield and defence would be too big. So if you play through the lines and give it to like an Odegaard in there, you're in so much trouble. You're dead, basically. Because they played Gay off behind that 4, it meant that they could go and get in their faces because he was the protection. And that's why I think they'll have to continue playing with that system. But what worked here against Arsenal doesn't necessarily, and to be honest, they'll play the same way at Liverpool. But then when the onus is on them a little bit more against, say, Leeds at home, Villa at home, they might struggle with that a little bit more because then you've got to do more. All they did in terms of, and it's not critical, but their offensive play came from winning the ball back, counter-attacking, or they were obviously a big threat from set pieces. And even the goal, we joked, obviously, it was McNeil to Tarkowski, but it was so trademark Burnley in the fact that the whole game, they were aiming corners towards the back post. Teams don't do that much. Burnley used to do it, and that's how they scored their goal in this game. But they absolutely deserved to win. I think for Arsenal, like, it's obviously a bad result. And I know probably quite a few of them will be pleased that Tottenham won yesterday. It should be, right? It's kept their advantage the same. But they're probably looking at it now and going, if they'd have won Saturday, surely you'd believe 100% at that stage. Whereas now the doubts are in, right? They've just gone 1-0, lost to Everton. They lost 1-0 at City in the Cup the previous week. And if you look further ahead at Arsenal's away fixtures, obviously they've got 2 home games coming up. But I think something mentally might begin to stick now with some of these away games are quite tough. Whereas if they played these teams at home, you go to definitely win. But away from home, Villa could be difficult. It might not be. Leicester away, we'll talk about Leicester in a sec. Different team played from Villa at the weekend. Fulham away is challenging. They've still got to go to Liverpool. They've still got to go to West Ham. They've still got to go to Man City. They've still got to go to Newcastle. Their last away game is Nottingham Forest, who might be fighting the drop. They might be safe, but they've been strong at home for a while now, Nottingham Forest. And that will probably be the big concern for Arsenal, because I wouldn't be surprised if they win every home game left. But those away games present some challenges, and they're probably, to win the title, probably going to have to win roughly half of them, I would think, maybe even more. So there's some challenges to come. I mean, admittedly, how many they need to win is a little bit dependent on City. This is only the second time this season Arsenal been beat on XG in a game. The only other time was the game at Leeds, and every Arsenal fan will tell you it's the one game this season that they were lucky to win that one. But I don't think it's disaster. I just think it's a circumstance where if that game had happened 2 weeks ago, Arsenal go there and win comfortably. It might even be that the game would happen there in 2 months and they'd go there and win comfortably. They have got this weird record there, Suj. I think Everton have taken 13 points, I think, from their last 5 home games against Arsenal.
Mad.
Have Everton got 13 points? I know they do. I'm joking. It's a good platform for Everton, where Sean Dyche 100% gives them a chance. If they'd not got a manager of Sean Dyche's caliber in, they would go down. He gives them the chance. He is Everton's most important player almost for the rest of this season. He'll give them a chance. And anybody who's sitting there now thinking, I think Everton will get out of this, it's because of Sean Dyche.
Agreed with you.
Proven down at this level, and he gives them a chance. I still think they're going to be in big trouble. If you ask me now, I still think they'll go down, because I just think the quality of the squad is not good enough. And when it's on the onus on them to win games, they'll find it a little bit more difficult.
Another result down at the bottom of the table in Leicester, obviously picking up 3 points against Aston Villa. I didn't see this one coming, and I didn't see Leicester scoring 4 goals away from home, but they did have a number of new signings on the pitch and that kind of thing. I mean, if you look at the weekend, and we'll talk about Wolves, Leicester, Everton, all picking up results, was not great for West Ham, and even Forest, if you want to still say they're in and around it, although they're not really touching distance at the moment. Made it particularly difficult. A lot of good results for teams down there. Leicester will be happy to pick up those 3 points away to Villa.
Yeah, particularly obviously having been behind twice as well. It's worth saying for both these teams from an FPL perspective, they've both got a little bit of a mini dog coming up. So Villa have got City away, then Arsenal at home. Leicester have got Tottenham at home, United away, Arsenal at home. And then for Leicester, fixtures get better from 26. And for Villa, there's going to be a lot of interest from game week 25. I've spoken about this lots, although the fixture at Everton in 25 looks a little bit more difficult today than it did 3 days ago, because the crowd will be up for it again, no doubt. So I think if you were going in from an FPL perspective, it would only be as part of another move to facilitate. I don't like if you were going for a Tyrone Mings as part of a -4, because it enables you to get up from a 6.5 mid to Saka or something like that. Otherwise, it's a weight on both of these two teams. Shout out to the guy who told me a couple of weeks ago, Alex Moreno will play no matter what at left back, which you might remember me mentioning to you, Suj. Luca Dean started, although he was withdrawn at halftime, and Moreno didn't cover himself in any glory for Leicester's 4th goal either. Emi Buendia was on the fringes of a little bit of a haul here. So obviously, technically, FPL assisted Watkins' first goal, which crashed back off the bar. And he also hit the bar with a header in the first half as well. He's nailed down a regular starting spot now for Villa. And he's got 2 double-digit hauls in the last 5, away to Tottenham and at home to Leeds. And he easily could have had another one here. He's worth keeping an eye on over these next couple of weeks at 5.7. He'll be a player accessible to a lot of people. So, for example, people still sitting there with Almiron might get to 25. Oh, shit, blank. Oh, I can't get up to the Arsenal players. What do I do? Like, your solution might fall into place. That someone like Emi Buendia. I genuinely think that. Obviously, though, you got Leon Bailey at 4.5. But I'd probably say pay the extra for Buendia, arguably. And despite the fact Bailey's often playing more advanced, they have flip-flopped a little bit between Bailey playing right and up front, Buendia playing left and in a 10 position. So we've got a little bit of flexibility with those front guys. But I think Buendia now, he's got a sense of he's got a really important role in this team. Watkins will be another one, 7.1. You know he's going to get mentions. And obviously with Danny Ings gone, you can feel a little bit more secure of the starts now. 3 goals in his last 6, 4 attacking returns in his last 6. That does include returns against Liverpool and Tottenham, for example. 7.1 Ollie Watkins, I think, is another one who'll get spoken about quite a bit in terms of when we head into 25. The big one for the Villa defensive guys is, like, now we're back to square root 1 with Dean and Moreno in seriousness, where we're not sure. Maybe the guy will message me again and tell me with 100% confidence what he knows. Matty Cash might come back in for Ashley Young, and we've got to be wary of Diego Carlos. He's closing in on fitness, and that's going to impact eventually one of Konsa or Mings. So it feels like at the moment, wait for, if you do want to go in Villa, wait. I mean, why are you going to rush in with City and Arsenal? But I can see that there might be some put in that enabler situation. If I had to do it, it'd be Mings, as I've been repeating week after week, which will no doubt be wrong. For Leicester, something really weird happened at the weekend, Suj.
They scored some goals.
Well, scoring goals isn't too much of a problem
fair,
for you.
It hasn't been too bad. It might feel it, but yeah, you're right. They've scored a fair amount of goals.
21 goals in 11 away games. That's brilliant. It's nearly 2 a game in away games. Problem is, they've conceded 25 in those away games as well. But it's narrowing up. Remember,
that includes a couple of spankings, though, doesn't it?
A couple?
Yeah, 3 or 4.
Few. Yeah. They were obviously getting battered. 4 at Arsenal, 5 at Brighton, 6 at Tottenham early in the season, weren't they? Iheanacho and Harvey Barnes both played together. This doesn't happen much. And I think the amount of people must have just looked at the weekend and gone, oh, Iheanacho started. Oh, Iheanacho scores goals. We said this a couple of weeks ago. Probably one of the most disrespected players in this league over the last 18 months, in the sense that in the COVID season, he finished unbelievable. He was in all our teams.
Yep.
And then the next season started and he wasn't in the team. And he's had like odd minutes here and there. I think the problem is that Rodgers doesn't like him as a lone front man. So where they got around this at the weekend was they played a much more offensive team. So Tielemans played quite a deep lying role, played in midfield with Dewsbury Hall. And they've obviously got the new lad, the Brazilian winger Tete, who scored a brilliant goal, played on the right wing. You've got Barnes on the left wing, and Maddison as a 10. Fullbacks, put the brakes on a little bit. That might be an impact for Castagne owners, which is worth keeping an eye on in the next few weeks. But Maddison normally plays as like the right of a front three, and they draw into left-hand side, which allows Maddison to come in at 10, and Castagna bombs on. Now with Tete holding the right touchline, a little bit a la Mahrez as a reminder for Leicester fans, Maddison played as more of a nominal 10. And if you can find him in space there, it's going to cause some teams some problems and damage. So these next 3 fixtures for Leicester are difficult. I don't know if they'll pick quite such an offensive team in those upcoming fixtures, but I would say as a Tottenham fan who plays them next, and I'll be at the King Power on Saturday, that if Leicester pick that team against us, I'm nervous. Very. Especially with obviously Romero suspended for us now as well, that will cause us some big problems. And actually, there's every chance if they went as offensive as that again, you'll get a very high scoring game.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Kane always likes to score against Leicester, so no one's selling him before the weekend. That's going to be your 4-3 prediction, is it?
No, I'm not sure that they'll go quite that strong, but I imagine they've had such a good result here that they might. I'm not convinced they'll go that offensive with United away and Arsenal at home. But I mean, certainly you look at that as an attacking 6, you go, yeah, there's no doubt as a front package, that's quite exciting and a top half team. Never said 2 debutants at the back as well. Christensen playing at left back, and Sutar was unfortunate with the own goal playing at centre back. So they've fixed that a little bit. That's definitely an upgrade on Amati and Thomas. I'm not seeing a lot of the game, but what I did see of the game, Christensen at left back looked really lively, like really prepared to get forward and stuff as well. So I wouldn't be surprised if Leicester go on and finish this season quite well, but it's obviously 3 difficult games. I think Tete at his price, he's really worth keeping an eye on. 5.5. He's another one with a similar price to Buendia, for example. Maddison's 8. And okay, there's tough fixtures coming on, but he's got talisman status for Leicester. Iheanacho, if he stays in the team, will score goals. And he's 6.1, and we should be aware of it. You know what will happen? He'll probably play these next 3, do well, and we'll think, bloody hell, that's amazing. Particularly if, say, Leicester lost in the cup to Blackburn. I'll have Iheanacho at 6.1. He'll start dropping him
Daka
again.
or Vardy will come back in. So annoying. Let's talk about
Iheanacho will score goals if he plays. Like, honestly.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Just do it. Just play him. Just play him.
It's frustrating when you see strikers that have got goals, but then have to sit on the bench.
Just finally, I said a few times that I think they will have some inconsistencies. And this was one of them. I don't think we expect Unai Emery teams to lose like this. Nico is also currently looking for the clip where I said a couple of weeks ago, Villa will concede a goal by playing out from the back because they're not good enough on the ball. That said, it was the one player you trust, Boubacar Kamara, was the player that was caught out. But yeah, it's not the first time. It won't be the last time they get caught out conceding a goal like that.
Brentford 3, Southampton 0. Southampton are gone, mate. There's nothing doing with them. They're going down.
Don't know. We can say that, Suj, in all honesty.
No, okay. You want to put money on it? I'll put money on it. I don't mind putting a $5 on Southampton going down.
Well, they might have a different manager by the end of the week.
But
it's changed things for Everton, isn't it? So I don't see how you could write a team. His comments after that game, Nathan Jones, were absolutely bizarre. About, oh yeah, I had like best XG in Europe while I was with Luton and stuff. What are you talking about, mate? Honestly. He was comparing himself like he was one of the greats of world football. And he said, I come in here and I've almost like I've been a bit soft and now I'm going to do things my way and stuff. I'm not sure these players are responding to you, mate. And to be honest, you only have to listen to the vibe of Southampton fans, where a couple of weeks ago, they beat City in the Cup, they beat Palace in the Cup, they won at Everton in the league, they had the 3 wins in a row, and it was like an acceptance of, okay, fine, this because they wanted him out before that. Let's go with this again. And now it's turned fully, where the majority of them want him out and would change. I don't think you'll find many Southampton fans, if I said to you now, Jones has been sacked, they'll go, I'm disappointed about that. Yeah. Like, I don't think they will be. So, and what's worse for Saints is they've obviously had this run of fixtures that's been quite nice. Well, in theory, you're about to come to the end of it, and they've gone backwards. So yes, they're in big trouble, because right now Wolves have obviously turned a corner. You think right now Wolves go to St Mary's and win at the weekend, I think.
Well, they've
Now,
just come off the back of beating Liverpool.
if that happens, I think that'll probably be curtains, and I think they'll change again, even if they get someone temporary in till the end of the season. Yeah, it's beginning to look like it was a mistake, and I hope he turns it around and sorts it out. But there was some. I mean, the bizarreness of the weekend started on Friday when Southampton announced in their B team Bella Kotchop, Kelechi Shah, Djenepo, and Orsic. They all played for the B team on Friday, quite early, like lunchtime-ish. And Nathan Jones was quizzed on it at his press conference. He said, doesn't rule him out tomorrow. Playing Friday, it's clear that they weren't going to start on Saturday. None of them in the squad. So what was that all about? Djenepo scored the winner against City a couple of weeks ago. Bella Kotchop was at the World Cup with Germany. So I don't know, it's like he suddenly jettisoned these players. Orsic just fucking joined. I can understand the wanting to get in minutes, but then organise a game on a Tuesday. Day before. So, yeah, there's some weird stuff going on there. They've kept 2 clean sheets in their last 27 in the Premier League, lost 8 of the last 9 league games.
Yeah. You don't think they're going to go down?
No, I do think they'll go down.
Well,
but all I'm saying is I wouldn't say it's over, but their best chance of changing it is doing exactly what Everton have done, unfortunately.
Change the manager.
It might also be the same case for Bournemouth as well, unfortunately. But yeah, you certainly wouldn't look at Saints' assets from an FPL perspective. That's gone over at this minute in time. Although the 2 new boys who they've got in, I do think are worth tracking. Onahuhu, who came on as a substitute up front, and Kamaldeen, who they've brought in as a midfielder. Kamaldeen's 5.0 midfield. Unachu is 5.5 up front. The reports I'd read on them suggest that they could actually have an impact on the rest of this season. And again, if you have a new manager comes in, a little bit of bounce, they get used properly, maybe. For Brentford, another super result, right? I guess the one from the FPL perspective, Ivan Toney, 1 point.
Well, it happens sometimes.
Well, it does with him, yeah. I heard someone write at the weekend, Ivan Toney's forgot how to score goals. Bloody hell, it's only been 2.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And Brentford blanked in the other one. What's perhaps more interesting, Suj, is since the 2-2 draw with Tottenham on Boxing Day, it's 4 clean sheets in 5.
Yep.
And FPL Harry, Ben Mee scored again at the weekend. One of the best returning defenders in the league. They're keeping clean sheets. They've got Arsenal this weekend. Then there's a nice little run in this, except for there's a blank. You've got Palace at home, blank, Fulham at home, Everton away, and then arguably Leicester at home, although that'll probably also be blank. But we'll overlook them. And Palace at home, Fulham at home, Everton away could easily be another 3 clean sheets, couldn't it?
Yeah.
If you're sitting there with Ben Mee, just to compare it, there'll be someone listening who's got like Ben Mee, Trippier, Botman, Shaw, for example. And you think, well, I've got to do something because of game week 25. And you think, oh, right, they're playing Arsenal away this week. It's the obvious one that I start moving Ben Mee on. But just come back to that and think about game week 26 and Brentford are at home to Fulham while Newcastle go to Man City. And in game week 24, Brentford at home to Palace and Newcastle at home to Liverpool. And I know what people are thinking about Liverpool, but just on paper, right? And it might be a Palace without Zaha, right? Just give that some thought. I don't think you're not buying Brentford new this week, but just give that some thought defensively. Aaron Hickey being back at right back will help them as well. And as expected in a fixture like this, switch back to a back 4. They stayed with a back 3 at Leeds, but I think Leeds is an interesting one because the way they come at you and the narrowness of the game that they play with, they decided to stay with a back 3. But back 4 in these more routine fixtures, normally what we'll get, they'll play a back 5 at Arsenal. And then when they play Palace and Fulham at home, I think you can probably, and Everton away, you can expect them to go back to a back 4. Tony, would you sell, Suj?
No, I'd hold.
Arsenal away?
I'd hold if I owned Ivan Toney.
If you've only got 1 or 2 Arsenal and you're looking at Nketiah.
That's not a bad shot. If you're moving to a doubler, I can understand that. But if you're not and you're going to a single game week player, I don't think I would. Not yet. No. Brighton 1, Bournemouth 0, James. I'm looking at you mentioned in the plan in 7 goals for Mitoma now. Guy is a machine, isn't he?
7 and 11, yeah.
Yeah, I really want to. If I've got two players in Martial and Pereira. Pereira sits on the bench week in, week out. I feel like if I downgrade Martial to a bench fodder, I'll play Mitoma a lot of weeks, and especially with the double potential in 26 and 27. After game week 25, I think I might go there, and he might be 5-1, 5-2 by then, but it's all right.
Yes, it is. And look, there's a couple more fixtures coming up with Palace away, Fulham at home, perfectly reasonable. We've got West Ham and Leeds on the other side. Yes, the United game could be lost. For those who listen to the Chip Strategy podcast, yes, I think Brighton probably will double in probably most likely 27. The blank is still most likely to come first. I think it was probably going to be, if it was going to be 24, I think we'd have known before the weekend. It's not to say it can't happen, but I think we'd have known.
Yep.
So you're likely to have blank now before double. But again, you should be conscious of that. You know, it's not just Mitoma, is it? If you've got Dunk or Estupinan or Sanchez, or even if you have gone for Solly March, if you've gone for Solly March rather than Mitoma, I'd probably be looking to move March on and come back from Mitoma, arguably. But those who won out this weekend, arguably, are the ones who've ignored the blank and gone for Brighton players. Because if I look at good teams this week who say haven't used the triple captaincy, the common denominator is to have Brighton player. And obviously, most commonly, that's Mitoma, but also one of the defensive guys I mentioned as well. So well done to those who are on. It's just not been the priority for me, actually. Would I, for example, take a hit to go from Pereira to Mitoma this week? I don't think I do. Away to Palace when Fulham's got Forest at home.
Prep for the doubles is really where it's at.
Yeah, so it just doesn't work for me at the moment. But I think those who are on, and particularly those who've got value held up, go, well, this is an ideal one just to carry through the blank, knowing there's every chance there's a double in behind. Interestingly, those 7 returns he's got in the last 11 games, there's no double pointers
right
in there. They're all well, I'm sorry, there's no double returns in there. There's only a single returns, like he hasn't scored twice in the game, whatever. The goal he got at the weekend was not what you'd expect from him in terms of getting on the end of the cross and heading in. And he was a little bit restricted at the weekend because although they played a back 4 again, you look in certain places, they'll tell you that it was a back 3. But I think they did have a little bit of movement within that, in the sense that Estupinan played with the brakes on a little bit and played a little bit more inside. That allowed, obviously, Mitoma to hug the touchline a lot more. Lamptey played at right back, and he obviously wants to bomb on. There's no point restricting him. And Joel Veltman got the nod this time to play on the right side of Lewis Dunk. So at times it had a little bit of a lopsidedness where it looked like it moved into a fray. And I think that was also a consciousness of, obviously, McAllister was suspended. He'll be back next week. And obviously, Caicedo, De Zerbi decided not to start. He got a really good reception when he came on. So those two will both go back in midfield for that game against Palace, you would imagine, which is Brighton's big motorway rivalry game, and they'll be better for it. So they played with Gross and Gilmore in there, and Undev played higher up the pitch off of Welbeck. Have you seen his free shot miss, Suj, from Undev?
No.
That's brilliant, mate. If you haven't seen Dennis Undev's free efforts at goal, which I don't know if they count them as combined XGs or not, but they've certainly were 3 big chances, and he missed all of them in the space of about 5 seconds. You have to catch that. Evan Ferguson, we think, is out for a couple of weeks for those who are holding. So I think in the circumstance for Brighton, couple of players absent, decent result, actually. For Bournemouth, there were a couple of debuts which I think are notable. Hamid Junior Traore played, and Antoine Semenyo, who they bought from Bristol City, started up front. And they're still missing a couple, like Solanke, Marcus Tavernier. Junior Traore is worth really, really keeping an eye on. You know which price is, Suj?
5 million.
He's 4.5 midfielder.
Okay. Midfield, yeah.
So the only thing with Bournemouth is, unfortunately, I mean, Christ almighty. Newcastle at home, Wolves away, City at home, Arsenal away, Liverpool at home, Villa away. It's rough. It's really rough. And because their fixture in 28 is locked, they're scheduled to play West Ham in 32. Now, for that to be postponed, West Ham would need to make the FA Cup semi-finals. And you've got United away in the 5th round and would have to win a quarter-final as well. The only likely double Bournemouth would have with someone like that would be great for a bench boost position is obviously the fixture against Brighton. And as spoken about on the Chip Strategy pod last week, that's more likely to be in a kind of like a game week 27 rather than a big double game week, because Brighton's other games will need to be rearranged and more likely to have to go in there. Newcastle because of TV, City and United because of their European involvement.
Who did Brighton draw in the FA Cup?
Stoke away.
Oh, so they're likely to win that. They're favourites for that.
And obviously they're scheduled to play United in 28.
Right.
And they're scheduled to play City in 32. So even if they don't, if the opponent does, yeah, you've got to think that way. So I think he's one that will get overlooked, and obviously the fixtures are rough as well. Keep an eye on him though. He's been underpriced. I would definitely say that he's been underpriced at 4.5, and people should be aware of him. He played behind Semenyo at the weekend, so you're talking positionally a little bit similar to Pereira, but arguably maybe even a little bit more advanced. So one to keep an eye on. Bournemouth might change, I think. But what are you changing into with those fixtures? I mean, that is so rough when you're down there.
Yeah, not even a consideration for me.
So,
mate.
Yeah, really tough period coming up for them. As I said, I wouldn't be hugely surprised if they decided to move on from Gary O'Neill and change, but whoever's coming in's got a problem. What I would say is, we've been saying consistently throughout the season that if they've got everyone fit, the 11's not bad. They've added depth this window, which gives them more of a chance. But at the moment, that depth's not there because they've got people like Solanke and Tavernier injured as well. So I need to get them fit, gives them more of a chance for the running. But over this February and March period, they've just got to hang on and keep themselves where they can see that they can get out.
United beat Palace 2-1. Obviously Rashford with the assisting goal. Bruno owners will be happy with the penalty as well. Just a fucking annoying loss of a clean sheet in there, but it is what it is. And Casemiro's red card as well. So. I think it affected everyone equally. So yeah, it wasn't a rank busting clean sheet loss, but it was annoying.
Do you know that we get pulled up a lot on this podcast for mispronunciations? And do you know what? We're not bothered. We don't get the official line of how to pronounce people's names. But did you know, Suj, that it's Casemiro rather than Casemiro?
Casemiro.
Yeah, his name's actually not even spelt with an E.
Oh, okay.
Even though he has E on the back of his shirt.
Okay, Casemiro.
Apparently, they misprinted it when he had a game in Brazil like a decade ago, and he played really well, so he decided to keep
Casemiro.
it.
Okay,
I saw that
Casemiro.
on a BBC interview the other day. His red card is obviously a blow for Manchester United. He'll miss both games against Leeds, who probably can't believe their luck at that. And then also missed the game week 24 fixture against Leicester. Then they blank. So Casemiro, like Bruno Guimaraes, is suspended until game week 26, which certainly makes prospects of a clean sheet at Leeds a little bit, or against Leeds rather, on Wednesday a little bit more difficult, and it will be the same for forthcoming fixtures. I will subquote FPL Panda, Rob Chetty, one of our patrons who has already coined the term Fred Bitzer, as suggesting with McTominay injured, that's possibly the solution United will go for, is to play Fred and the on loan Marcel Sabitzer. Did you think it was a red card, Suj? I thought it was harsh, really harsh.
Orange.
The thing is, the angle that they showed, Andre Mariner got really stitched up, right? Because the angle they showed him, it looks like he's got two hands around his throat. But there's an angle behind where you can tell he's got his hand around him, but he's pulling up like the back of his collar. He's pulling up the back of his shirt. He hasn't actually strangled him. If obviously strangled him.
Don't raise your hands, though.
No, I get that.
Don't raise your hands.
He's not the only one that does it. I actually think United would have grounds for appeal, but I think they would still say you shouldn't do that. So
don't raise your hands.
Not.
Don't raise your hands.
Yeah, unfortunately. So I think he'll be a miss. We spoke about Martial earlier. It was basically a fifth of the top 100k triple captained Marcus Rashford, 550,000 overall. I mean, it's fair to say we're pretty pleased with the outcome. I was probably, having bought Bruno for the -4, was probably one of the few people who was quite pleased that Bruno was on the penalty rather than Rashford, so I could have the return from both of them. But I wouldn't say with certainty that definitely means that Bruno Fernandes stays on the pens. They've had 4 different takers this season. I think Martial's taken one, Ronaldo obviously is now gone, Rashford's taken one as well, and now Fernandes. So I know there was a lot of people like Late Riser was suggesting who thought it would be Bruno Fernandes, but I wouldn't say that's definitive. Like it's going to definitely be Bruno Fernandes going forward. So I'd just be a little bit aware of that. United dominated till the red card, which obviously then give Palace a chance.
Yeah.
They're obviously missing Zaha. They're also within this dog dinner of a little bit of a run that goes right up until the blanking game with 28. Interestingly, Eze didn't start. And he also didn't start the game against Manchester United when they played him a couple of weeks ago either. He started every other game this season. I don't know if there's something specific in that, or that perhaps Patrick Vieira thinks he's getting a little bit fatigued through this season now because he's done well. Because in the injury problems he's had, he's done well to start all these games this season and not have any setbacks. So maybe they're being cautious with him. Jeffrey Schlupp played towards the left. With Will Hughes playing central midfield, and obviously they've got Lokonga in and Armada into central midfield that gives some competition there, which to be better for because they've been a little bit light in that area. Palace can get sucked in here, but I'm very confident that the run they have after sort of Arsenal in 28 means that they would pull themselves back out of it if they got sucked in. But yeah, they're a hard avoid at the moment as well.
I feel like Bournemouth, Southampton, the writing really is on the wall with those two, which means there's only one relegation spot left. And if I look at the pack below Palace, there's one of those teams is going to be worse than Palace. So they're not going to get relegated, but they could easily get sucked in. I see what you mean. I mean, they're 6 points off the drop zone right now. And we saw another weekend like what we saw where Leicester or Wolves or West Ham or even Leeds pick up a result and suddenly it's just 2 or 3 points, then it will get a bit more nerve-wracking for them.
Palace's last 5 home games: Leicester, Everton, West Ham, Bournemouth, and Nottingham Forest.
They'll have enough to get through.
Yeah, if they get sucked in, they'll get themselves out of it, I think.
Agreed. Wolves 3, Liverpool 0.
I mean, we were going out. I'd watched Everton Arsenal, and we were going to take Harry out to the park. Had TV still on the background, and Wolves scored. It's like, again, another early goal conceded. Went in the bathroom 5 minutes, come back out. Wolves scored again. You're like, this is an issue now. And I think for the first time, there's a little bit of turning now. And I must say, and I think most people would agree with this statement that change everything else in the club before you change Jurgen Klopp. No way. Anybody who thinks, oh, he can get sacked. There's enough people who don't like FSG at Liverpool, and sacking Jurgen Klopp with the credit he's got in the bank, they're not going to do it. But he might decide at some point to walk if he thinks he can't turn it around himself. But he signed a new long-term contract not that long ago. I don't see that happening. So what you need is a big rebuild, because this has now gone on too long. It's not just
we know that the midfield is a problem for a while. And they haven't fixed it.
Well, he thought that he probably had a little bit recently with this midfield three of Bajcetic sitting a bit deeper, Thiago and Keita. With Keita in there, you've got a little bit more legs and stuff. He's not solved any problems. I mean, they just got overrun for big periods of that first half. Liverpool didn't start the match till about 20 past 3. And by that point, you're 2-0 down and chasing. And they did have some chances, like Darwin Núñez had a decent XG again. But reality is Liverpool have conceded 9 goals in the last 3 away games. So you concede 3 at Brentford, you go, wow, yeah, tough place to go. You concede 3 at Brighton. Yeah, they've been we don't expect to get beat there 3-0. Then they went and got beat there again in the Cup.
Yeah.
3-0 at Wolves.
Yeah.
Wolves increased their goal tally this season by 25% on Saturday.
Yeah, I was there. We played against them, and there was a similar. I mean, Cunha played that day, Núñez and Hwang, Neves, and I didn't see where they were going to score. They just didn't. They weren't threatening in that way. Like they play nice football in midfield and in transition from the back to the front. But as soon as they got in the final third, they didn't feel like they would ever threaten. And to score 3 against Liverpool, and that's a back 4 which has got Trent, Robertson, Gomez, Matip. That's not a bad back 4, mate.
I'll argue it's not a good one anymore.
It's not playing well, but all of them are all right. They've all had their moments where we think, okay, they're decent.
Individually, Liverpool have great players. They still do. Even all those three midfield players, with whether those
Still
are
got
in
Alisson
now
in
or
goal.
those who come out individually, they're right. As a collective right now, mate, Alisson's probably Liverpool's player of the year, isn't he?
Yeah.
I don't know. Tell me, who would Liverpool fans vote for as their player of the year? Because I can't think there'd be many options at the moment.
Yeah, you're right.
He'd have to be in contention because he saves them some weeks.
Maybe Darwin. Oh, I mean, that's just on X Lively more than
Darwin
goals.
on chaos. Yeah, is
Yeah,
Liverpool's
it's
player
on
of the
X
year.
Lively more than anything else. Yeah.
Yeah. Look, it needs a big rebuild. I think the idea. I look at Chelsea right now, and obviously with the additions, if they obviously need some time to gel and get players like Fofana, Wesley Fofana back, and James, etc. But if they hit the ground running early next season, like Arsenal did this season, you could see them challenging for the title. This Liverpool, unless it gets an overhaul, is not going to do it. It's not going to do it. I can't see them putting the consistency together to the point that Everton now rock up at their place next week. And it's Sean Dyche's Everton now.
It's a tough game.
It's different. So, yeah, but the answer isn't changing the manager. And I know there's a few beginning to ask the question. That's not the solution for Liverpool, unless Jurgen Klopp thinks that's the solution. Liverpool fans are going to have to be patient here, I think.
Come on, Dawson.
I still wouldn't rule them out for top four, honestly, because I think United will finish probably third behind City. And I wouldn't be surprised if United caught City, to be honest. But I think that will be the top three. And Newcastle was definitely still favourites for fourth. But I think like Newcastle and Tottenham aren't outstanding enough to make me think that a Liverpool or a Chelsea or a Brighton can't catch them if they can sort themselves out. So I still wouldn't rule them out. But up to game week 30, Liverpool have got to go to St James's. They've got to go to the Etihad. We've got Manchester United and Arsenal both come to Anfield. And it might be that these bigger games sort them out a little bit better. But actually, things like going to Palace in 25. We joked about this a few weeks. Palace might say that's their easiest fixture of like January and February. Is maybe Liverpool at home in game week 25 because you know that they'll give you a chance. What do you think about buying Mo Salah, Suj? Everyone just laughed, which is unbelievable, isn't it?
For when?
All right, let me give you a circumstance. Hypothetical, right? You're sitting there with Kevin De Bruyne, okay?
Who has a double?
Who has a double and also didn't
on
start
paper.
on paper. Who also didn't start for Manchester City yesterday. And let's say by the weekend, there's rumours that he's in trouble, and you're thinking, well, I've got Mason Mount as well. I can swap Mason Mount to Mahrez, and then I've got all this money, and I can go De Bruyne to Salah, for example. And by that point, you've also heard that Liverpool double in 25.
Players like Mo Salah, and I would put Heung-min Son in the same bracket. When Kane was on his barren run, I'd put Kane in that bracket as well. I don't think are a bad buy at any time, especially if you've got the fixtures to back it up, because the quality is that good that it doesn't disappear overnight. Like players don't become finished, if you know what I mean. They're not just done. I think if you are chasing rank and you want to climb up a little bit and you want to do something a little bit different, it's not a bad decision to go to Mo Salah. Would I do it? I wouldn't sell De Bruyne. When you say De Bruyne's in trouble, what do you mean?
I mean, like, let's say Guardiola says he's doubtful, or if Pep gives it the large and actually says, no, I'm not picking him. Or whatever. I think, Salah's by the way, just to cover that off now, I think Kevin De Bruyne will start both games in a double, which we'll come on to in a bit.
6th highest scoring midfielder in the game this year.
What, Salah? Who's above him?
De Bruyne.
Yeah.
Couple of points in that. Saka.
Yeah.
Almiron.
Odegaard,
and Marcus Rashford.
Rashford's got more than Salah now. Yeah.
Rashford's got more than any other midfielder, mate. 120 points. Yeah.
Well, I suppose, yeah. He's had another good haul at the weekend, hasn't he? All right. Let me phrase that question differently. Let's say that the Wolves fixture did get added to game week 25, which I spoke about last week on the Chip Pod as being a strong possibility. Now, if you think when, well, I think it's probably a little bit dependent on Fulham's result on Wednesday in the FA Cup. So maybe Thursday or Friday. In any case, being serious, you're probably not, even though they've got Everton, your priorities probably lie somewhere else this week. But let's say the double does happen in 25 and it's Crystal Palace away and Wolves at home. Do you captain him? Do you get him in and captain him? Or do you go, we've just got Haaland at Bournemouth? We'll come on to him in a bit as well.
I'm being unhelpful here.
Could it be that Liverpool could be in game week 25, which is obviously a blank game week? It could be that just them and Wolves double, right? And for the record, Wolves double would be Fulham away and Liverpool away, so it wouldn't overly appeal. But let's just say that Liverpool basically were the only captainable player asset, if you will, that double. Are we actually saying that we would consider not just steaming into Mo Salah and captain him for a double? He'd be the only one with one.
I think I would.
I think I would as well.
And I'm just thinking about, you know what, we've both got similar ranks, right? 500,000-600,000 or something like that. We're not getting into the top. 100k might be doable if we have a really good run, but it is a bit treading water, right? You have a few good game weeks, get up to maybe 400k, then drop back a little bit. Let's have a bit of fun. I feel like I'd do it to be a bit kamikaze more than, and it's not even a kamikaze move, mate. That's probably captaining Mitoma or something like that. But I think I would, you know. I would.
My plan has always been that Kevin De Bruyne is sitting there ready to go for Mo Salah in case this eventuality happens. Now, obviously, I've got De Bruyne's double coming up, which we'll talk about in a bit. I'm not getting rid of KDB at the moment anyway. What I would say strongly is for those who've got Liverpool players, I know it didn't work out at the weekend, but it is still Everton at home this weekend. Don't necessarily jump ship. As shit as it looks right now, it's still a great fixture, isn't it, Everton at home? And even the defensive ones, it's foreseeable they keep a clean sheet. I think Everton are the weakest team offensively in this league still. I don't think that's changed.
Right.
So I think keep for the minute. Wolves, just briefly, there's a couple of important bits on them as well. Bueno didn't start, which is a concern for people like me. Ryan Aït-Nouri started, and it's the first time he started under Lopetegui when they played about 4. I don't know if that's a specific to go up against Mo Salah. I don't know, but most people probably who do own Bueno are thinking, I need him to play at Fulham in 25. There's a couple of fixtures against Southampton and Bournemouth that is going to give us some information. The problem for that is they played very well at the weekend, Wolves. What surprised me even more was Craig Dawson coming into the team instead of Nathan Collins. So I know a few now are going, shit, Wolves, because Wolves have got a couple of good fixtures, right? Southampton away, Bournemouth at home. And if we're saying that there's the possibility of that double there in 25 and their fixture against Leeds could go ahead in game week 28, now that the Liverpool fixture's gone, we should have looked before, people suddenly asking questions about Wolves defenders. I think Max Kilman is safe, in my opinion. And I think the big thing with that is he's the only one that would be natural to play left-sided centre-back. So if you want to pay a little bit extra and you're suddenly thinking, yeah, do you know what? Wolves is my enabler. Wolves could cover me great for 25, 28. And as said, you could even have the bonus of an extra fixture. Max Kilman. You can't buy Bueno now at this minute. If this is what you've been waiting for, can't need more information. And I wouldn't. Ryan Aït-Nouri could be great if he plays every week, but I bet he doesn't. So Max Kilman might be the one to have a look. What price is he, Suj? I think it's only 4.5. I would have thought it must be.
Probably.
Max Kilman.
Let's assume he is.
He'd be the one to gamble on, maybe. They played a little bit differently at the weekend where
4-3, James.
Is that who he is? 4-3?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look, in our, as you know, our Slack channel, our Wolves Slack channel on Patreon is one of our busiest. If I'm wrong, they'll tell you later if I'm wrong on Max Kilman. But I'd think that's safe. 4.3. He's played every minute this season. Every single minute. Now, return's not great, but interestingly, take West Ham at home the other week. There's a 9-pointer in there. And there was a 9-pointer in a 0-0 at Bournemouth and a 7-pointer in a 0-0 against Fulham earlier in the season as well. So there's a little bit of scope. He's good on the ball, right? He played futsal as a young player. So he's decent on the ball. And Wolves, I think, can expect to see more of it in forthcoming weeks. Lamina played in midfield with Neves. Nunes played a little bit more left. The reports are that Lamina was really, really good in midfield. He's a player I like. I think we'll probably win agreement, and Wolves are going to get themselves out of this. I mean, the manager's good.
Yeah, they'll be all right.
I still think they're going to struggle for goals, but they'll get out of it.
Cool. Let's rattle through. We've still got 3 games to go, James. We've done an hour and 15 already. So Wolves Newcastle in 60 seconds. Scrappy game. End to end. Could have been shit for West Ham after the first 5 minutes, but came back into it and put a good fight of it in the end and scored a goal, which Newcastle haven't conceded in a long time. Danny Ings, knee injury, mysteriously appeared back on the bench and got some minutes. So
that's good.
All that panic, where's the worry? Done.
Maybe he had injections. Maybe he's not.
Yeah, I'm not sure, to be honest with you, but it was very unexpected. Came completely out of the blue that Danny Ings was on the bench, considering people are saying 3 or 4 weeks.
FPL question, Suj Emerson.
But what's the question?
It's 4.0 and people possibly want him for cover in 25.
He's going to play. The back 3's staying. Okay. For me, in my opinion, the back 3's staying because we've done well with it in the last few games. And if we're playing a back 3, Emerson's playing left wing back. And he played okay. I think he's staying. If you want a 4.0, yes. But obviously, we might not play him 28 and 32.
Understood. Shout out to Aguerd, tackle of the season.
Whoa! I
genuinely tackled the season.
Just from where it came from, and the thing is, you fuck that tackle up, that's a penalty. You fuck that tackle up, and it's a penalty. That guy was man of the match for me. He's too good. But
it's good, isn't
he? Yeah, he's really, really good. That tackle was one of those. Yeah, wow, what a tackle.
Interestingly, I've seen lots of Newcastle fans saying very, very nice things about Declan Rice over the weekend. I don't know if in their head, they're trying to buy him.
Well, the first 5 minutes, obviously they disallowed goal, and you think, "What? Wake up, boys!"
Oh my
but
God,
then
that
straight
start,
away,
you must have thought, "What?"
To score another, and you're like, "But I mean, the only word I could use in chat groups was pathetic." In the first 5 minutes, but then to kind of get a hold of the game, get back into it, get a bit of control in midfield, and then slowly build and start progressing further forward was good. And we gave them a good game. They're a hard team to play against. It's so well drilled and so well organized, and the structure is really good with them. It's not an easy day out at St James's Park. The atmosphere sounded really lively as well, as it would be after getting to the cup final midweek.
We said it might not be, but I think the way the game started,
particularly lively.
Yeah.
Antonio had a decent game as well. In terms of work rate and nuisance factor, I wouldn't say in terms of quality on the ball, but he definitely worked hard and put himself out and gave Botman a bit of a tough time physically as well. I think this Paqueta and Rice as a pair is going to stick. I think the back 3 is going to stick. Who'll play up top, I'm not sure, but that's obviously down to fitness more than anything else.
So Ben Rama wouldn't be locked in your mind at this stage, no?
Oh no, he'll play in the 2 behind the front man. I meant the top Antonio position.
Antonio at Ings.
Yeah. I think no. Ben Rama and Bowen in behind is definitely the 2 I think that will play.
Okay, well, that potentially makes Ben Rama a very short, interesting one, maybe perhaps for game week 25. I imagine, I'm sure someone listening will free hit him for 25. I wouldn't advise it, but I'm sure if you were, Ben Rama's the sort of play you'd really consider, wouldn't you?
Yeah, for sure. And he's a good price as well. I think he's 5'8" from memory.
He's cheap as he's in around that kind of Buendia price.
5'6" he's at, James. Decent price, very good price for Ben Rama.
The problem is obviously there's every chance you won't play in 28. So if you get to that point and you're looking to buy just hypothetically Buendia or Ben Rama, then I think you lean into Buendia because you've got the extra fixture. Yeah, exactly that. Mind you, could be different in terms of people free hitting in 28, and it looks like West Ham will double in 29 and Villa won't. Then maybe you look at it the other way. But you won't factually know that information when you have to make the decision is part of the problem. No. Quick fire ones on Newcastle, Suj. What did you think of St. Maximin's performance?
Poor.
What did you think?
Ineffectual. I don't know. He's lost his place because of injury, and then obviously they've bought other players who've played particularly well, and they've got a new system now. And I feel like he doesn't know where he fits anymore, is how I would describe him a little bit. I don't know if there's no doubt about his quality and explosiveness, but the rest of the team is all about discipline and structure, and they're organized and the way they play. And he's unstructured and just chaos, isn't he? And lively and dribbles and picks the ball up. I feel like he's in the wrong team now. I think it developed into a different style, and St. Maximin's not part of that.
He's individualistic, and that's not to say he doesn't work for the team.
But I don't think Newcastle are anymore. I think they're so organised, and they're passing so crisp and structured, and shape is really good, and everybody knows their job and they know what they're doing, that there isn't room for a chaotic live wire, free spirit. A lot of teams can function with a Eric Cantona or David Ginola, kind of do what you want to do because you're that good that you can get away with having one player that's like that. I don't think that Newcastle, he fits in anymore.
Does Anthony Gordon fit in?
He played well when he came on.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
He played really well when he came on.
Yeah, I agree.
Energy-wise, it was like a new lease of life. He'd got energy and he wanted to get on the ball and make things happen and drive forward. And they had more goal threat when he came on. So the answer is yes, he does.
Almiron, sell?
I would
Have you
now.
got still?
I sold him for Saka, didn't I? So
yes, of course.
I would now. Yeah. With the blank coming up, he's expendable. I would say I wouldn't sell because he's a problem, but I'd say he's expendable. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's still a good fixture this weekend against Bournemouth.
Yeah,
but yeah, I think it's becoming that with Liverpool blank City. I listen, obviously Liverpool you could hold and stuff.
Players have their time, even like Martinelli at Arsenal, he had a good run for a period, and then sometimes we get stuck on holding them. But players at that value, 6-7 million, sometimes they have their time, and then you should never be scared to move on, even if you've made money on them. The premiums, your De Bruynes and Kanes and what have you, they're kind of timeless players that, regardless of the fixture.
Almiron's the sort of one I think you could say that maybe I've been in that position for a few weeks, maybe with Martinelli, where you can hold a player for too long because the value. I just think it's with Martinelli, it's one that it's like I've got to be sure that I'm doing the right thing if I'm selling. Whereas Almiron feels like a more obvious, like there are alternatives here. It's not to say he's never going to score again, but it feels like that streak he had, and he was scoring worldies, wasn't he? You reflect on it now and go, it wasn't really sustainable, but the guy's just in magic form. So I think for most, yeah, it's a sell, but again, like I wouldn't be desperate to sell him ahead of Bournemouth and Liverpool. And I think the work that he does for the team would probably stay in at the moment, but there's also a case to say maybe he himself needs a break. And now with the introduction of someone like Gordon, that possibility is on the table. We don't know. You said Gordon looked lively when he come on. I really agree with that. He could easily come in for Almiron or St. Maximin at the weekend, couldn't he? Easily.
Yeah, for sure. So I'd say
I'd
more likely to come in for St. Maximin than Gordon. I
agree,
Almiron.
By the way. I agree.
But yeah, he might decide that he wants to rotate it a little bit.
Was it obvious to you that Guimaraes wasn't playing?
Not in the first 10 minutes, not in the first 10 to 15 minutes, but as the game went on, I do think, the control he gives in the midfield. Like, had Guimaraes been playing, I think Rice would have had a very different game because Rice was able to get on the ball a lot more in midfield and try and control things. If Guimaraes had been there, it'd have been a much different game. So I think so, yeah.
Yeah, they run out of the ideas would be harsh. Legs a little bit second half. They didn't overly create. Didn't watching the game second half. Didn't feel like they were going to score. To be totally honest, and there obviously have been question marks about them scoring.
They had their moments, like with Wilson going in one-on-one and that kind of thing. But yeah, it wasn't like wave after wave of attack for sure.
Okay. I think that's just one final point on Newcastle West Ham. Obviously no bonus points for Kieran Trippier this week. He was the highest in the BPS not to get a bonus point from the game.
Fair play. Cool. Let's talk about Forest and Leeds then. Forest 1, Leeds 0. I mean, Forest are on a roll, mate. If you talk about teams that are going to avoid relegation, I feel like Forest and Palace, we talked about Palace getting sucked in. Forest, they have the same points, but I feel like Forest have momentum and positivity.
Same points as Palace, is that right?
Yeah, 24 points, mate. Same points. Goal difference is a lot worse, but they've had a few spankings.
Forest also now, though, come into a tougher run themselves. Fulham away, City at home, West Ham away. Then there's Everton, then they've got Tottenham, Newcastle. So they're coming into a tougher run themselves as well. We said this 3 weeks ago. Wonder if Forest can get 7 points out of these next 3. It's exactly what they've done. But they haven't pulled quite as clear as they probably thought they would have because of results such as Everton winning on Saturday, for example. But yeah, it's great little return from. They've obviously got like 3 teams worth of players, so depth isn't a problem for them. But Brennan Johnson's obviously been key recently. He's either scored or assisted all of Forest's last 5 Premier League goals. They've scored first in 9 of their 11 home games, you know, Suj.
Oh, wow.
That's part why their home record is quite decent. We've said it a number of times. I haven't lost in the league at home since September. So when you're doing that, you're scoring first 9 of 11, you ain't going to lose many, are you?
No.
I didn't watch this game, to be totally honest. I caught the last 15 minutes of it in the stadium at White Hart Lane, but didn't watch it otherwise. So I'll leave most of the chat for Mark Southerns tomorrow on Clash of the Correspondents. But one really interesting line is that Forest XG in this game was the lowest by a winning team in any Premier League game this season. It was around about 0.29, 0.3.
Oh, wow.
Really low. Obviously, Johnson's goal was low XG. Not that Leeds had a mountain of high XG themselves, but they certainly had some good chances in the first half. The Somerville miss from the Nonto layoff would have been particularly handy for those who'd gone for Nonto. So it's interesting one that Leeds actually, with questioned defensively, you can see the XG like that. Seems like a pretty good defensive performance to me. It's obviously influenced by the fact Forest have been leading for a long time in the game. And yet, I've seen the footage. Many would have seen the footage after the game of them singing Jesse Marsh, "It's Time to Go." And you know that I don't think it's the best solution, but I also accept that Leeds' results are not what they should be. This is another game where really they shouldn't have lost.
That third relegation spot at the moment, I think, is between Everton and Leeds on current form and the current state.
Everton are the better defensively of the two, but Leeds are much better offensively. Much better.
Yeah, agreed. But
And
you look at West Ham.
The difference between can you get 3 points or can you steal a 1 point down there at the late stage, I would still favour Leeds.
If I said like West Ham, Wolves, Leicester, Forest, Palace, all of those you'd say probably be all right. Everton, Leeds, you'd say could go.
Oh, yeah, I mean,
and that's why I think it's between the two of them. I don't know, you know, I think it's very touch and go between Everton and Leeds, which one of them is most likely to get relegated.
Well, after Leeds' double header against United, they go to Goodison Park. So you've certainly built that one up quite nicely, Suj, for game week 24.
You need to set up Clash of the Correspondents, mate. That could be a good one.
I had Andy on last week, didn't I? So I can't be doing that again, can I? He'll only tell everyone who was triple captain this week, which I don't think was Marcus Rashford, actually, but it will tell you about Kevin De Bruyne last season, and we'll talk about it in a sec. Have you got any leads, Suj?
Nope.
No, you didn't go in. I think, look, I went for Nonto with the idea of changing the structure of the team. So he stays, he covers game week 25 really nicely against Southampton. And look, if I had to play him against United at the weekend or Everton next weekend, I think that's absolutely fine. And to be honest, if you've gone for Leeds, you probably are sticking. Like if you've gone for Voba, for example, you're going to be looking at going, it's really good cover for 25 at home to Southampton, going to stick. So if you've gone, probably sticking for the time being, I think. I wouldn't be freshing Nonto out the team, for example. And I wouldn't mind betting they probably will score at Old Trafford on Wednesday night, by the way. But remember, it's a big game for Leeds. If they lose badly to United twice, then I think they'll change. Obviously, if they lose badly to United twice and then lose at Everton, they'll definitely change.
Cool. Let's wrap up with Tottenham 1, Man City 0. We do have Tottenham for the patrons later on in the week.
No, we don't.
We can do. Oh, no Tottenham today, this week. Yes, I'm away for a couple of days.
Because you're pissing off.
So they'll get it when they get it.
next week. But I've got some Tottenham chat to cover for the guys.
Lovely jubbly. But yeah, good win. I mean, City are just disappointing, mainly from a fantasy point of view, not from a footballing point of view, because I feel like I want to have faith in them and go for it. No, but as in a footballing point of view, I couldn't care less if they're shit or not, to be honest with you, mate. Let them.
Well, I
let them
could
burn, because
from this point, I hope they win every game they've got left.
I don't want the league to be about who's got the deepest pockets, put it that way. So if they burn on the pitch, so be it. But from a fantasy point of view, I obviously want to buy their assets, and particularly from Sky Fantasy, like I was going to steam in and own 6 or 7 of the guys from the Aston Villa game coming up. I'm not so confident about doing that now. It's really put a doubts in my mind. But Spurs, on the other hand, to be honest, it felt like you wanted to win that game, effort-wise, pressing, energy, work rate. It was like you wanted to win that game way more than they did. And I don't think they expected you to have the intensity that you had.
Yeah, the patrons who watched my Christian Romero analysis from when we lost at Manchester City were probably smiling through their teeth, watching Tottenham's goal yesterday and the press, which obviously Højbjerg won the ball. What Tottenham did differently yesterday was, rather than Romero coming out to, obviously Gundogan didn't start and Bernardo didn't play as high as Gundogan did in that 4-2. Romero was coming out and pushing into midfield. What Tottenham did yesterday to manoeuvre around that was they pushed Dyer out into midfield. And if you watch the goal back again from an aerial, you can see it. And I was particularly impressed with myself when I was explaining to Dad, watch what's about to happen, and we scored. So it's really nice for a change when we've been quite critical of Conte and his structure. And even though he wasn't at the training ground this week and he's still in Italy, we think he's going to be back around about Wednesday. That absolutely, it was his blueprint all over that game in terms of Tottenham off the ball. And there has been a theme of Tottenham since Bentancur has come back in the team, that there's more structured pressing going on and much better. He enables it because his fitness is brilliant. Although Højbjerg was great yesterday in terms of off the ball stuff. The danger when you go and press into Manchester City really badly is they pop it round corners and you get De Bruyne in between the back four and the midfield four, for example, and you're dead basically. And the amount of times that happened in the game yesterday, obviously not for De Bruyne, but any player, was very minimal. Very minimal. Always the danger when you play against City is you go and press them and you're in trouble.
Yeah.
They're not playing out from the back with the quality that the way they've done in the past. And I think that's because their distributors at the back are not as good. Akanji, for me, there's nothing wrong with him on the ball, but is he a great distributor? No. It's never been Cole Walker's greatest strength. You're pushing Lewis out from left back on this occasion into central midfield, so he's not building up from the back. And again, I was hugely praising of him the other day in terms of his understanding. Is he technically magnificent where he's going to play through balls and stuff? No. And Aki, I think is very good on the ball. Is he going to punch balls into Bernardo Silva into midfield areas and stuff? Nope. So actually, unless you're getting it into Rodri or Bernardo Silva's dropping in short, your distribution is just not to the same level of quality. And as I've said a few times recently, they are so easy to play through.
Yeah.
All the best moments during the game after our goal was our counter-attacks. Easy to play through.
Yeah.
Whereas I just don't think like you're afforded that luxury against an Arsenal or a Newcastle, for example. So like, I think we deserve to win the game. We've now beat them. I mean, it's a remarkable statistic, isn't it? We've beaten them 5 times since the stadium was rebuilt in 5 games, and they haven't scored a single goal. And it's under 4 different managers, those 5 games for Tottenham, by the way, as well. Remarkable statistic. And I'll be honest with you, Suj, you know, when you're beating like a team like City 1-0 and you know it's coming, you're shitting yourself.
Well, you saw it 2 weeks ago.
What? Oh, yeah, I've seen them cut. Yeah.
You were winning 2-0 and
when
the way
on that night, as soon as I got the 2-1, it's like, oh yeah, I know what's coming. Last night, it's no real worry, Suj.
Even when De Bruyne's coming on, you're not.
I mean, I think
careful.
Emotionally, you're worried about it. Of course you are. And obviously there was the whole thing. Once Kane had scored as well, it became a real desperation, I think, from everybody in that stadium to win the game. Yeah. Obviously for us, but also for him as well. I'd spoken to you about I didn't want this to be like Kane scores a consolation with 3-0 down to Man City. Like, that's not the moment. And the way it ended up through the day, it's one of my favourite ever days supporting Tottenham. Not because it was like one of the best ever games, but the emotion that came around it was brilliant. And the way Tottenham did the stuff with Kane after the game was unexpected and stuff. But it wouldn't have happened if we hadn't won, right? He ain't standing in the middle of that pitch doing that interview if we lose 3-1, right? And Tottenham knew they were only doing it if they won the game, basically. So yeah, really impressed with us, but them not right.
So
Haaland, no touches in the box. First time since September 2020, he's not had a shot in a league game.
So I think Carragher made the point afterwards that Haaland scored 25 goals this season in the league, but City haven't scored any more goals than they had the same time last season. They've scored the same amount of goals. He's just scored half of them, which means other people have not contributed with the same volume of goals. And this is what gets mentioned a lot.
I mean, would help if he played Phil Foden most weeks. I accept that he was probably unavailable yesterday. Yeah. I get that.
So I think what listeners are really interested in, James, is the double game week for City now. And a lot of people own De Bruyne. What to do? Like, for me, I've got Lewis. I'm expecting 1 game out of 2, and I'm happy with that. And De Bruyne and Haaland, I think we'll play both.
They had another bad result yesterday. Guardiola might rip up. Look, De Bruyne didn't play in the league game. I'd mentioned it on my deadline stream. And I know Luke, who's mad clever. We were both of the same opinion, me and Luke, the same, was that like De Bruyne probably will play, but don't be surprised if he doesn't.
Yeah.
Now Luke, the guys in Slack will already know, he said he's highly likely he'll play twice in the double. And it's to do with system of opponent, where he's obviously favoured Alvarez playing right up front against Haaland because obviously playing against the back three. And Alvarez had some lively moments. He had the one, to be honest, City's best effort at the game, bar Mahrez's shot right on half time. But in actual terms of effort, he had a great shot in the second half. But I think he'll go back to De Bruyne for these 2 upcoming games. And you'd like to think Kevin De Bruyne's got higher motivation for it. The only caveat I'd say to this is Kevin De Bruyne was shit at the World Cup. And Kevin De Bruyne's shown very little since the World Cup to make me think, I've got to have him in my FPL team, or he's becoming a pain in the arse a little bit. So for me, again, he's been sitting there as kind of placeholder for Salah. Does he go this week? No, I wouldn't dream of sending him this week. And you know what? If it's 2 1-pointers, 2 1-pointers. But I bet it's not. I bet he'll start the 2 games. But the whole big game Kev, I've been saying it for years, ain't big game Kev at the moment. And I think we should understand that there is definitely some form of regression happening here because he's been so good. He's so dynamic, right? He's like, is he coming up to 32 already? 32? So it was natural when you got a player that's that dynamic with what they do. Yeah, it's going to begin to slow down a little bit. So
I don't know if I'm buying into that regression of Kevin De Bruyne. I just think that it's regression of Man City. I just think something's wrong there at the club. And it's
massively. But Guardiola told you that after they beat us 4-2. He's like, we're not playing well. The motivation's not quite right. Johnny's coming on COTC on Thursday, and so is obviously Adam Pritchard. So we'll do a whole pod on Arsenal City assets and stuff. One of the things I'm keen to ask Johnny is if he thinks Liverpool's regression has harmed City's. Because they've battled so much of each other. Of City taking their eye off the ball because Liverpool aren't the opponent standing in front of them. And there probably is a focus now going, oh, shit, Arsenal's there. But it probably didn't help City on Sunday that Arsenal lost on Saturday in a weird way. In terms of their mentality going into a game against Tottenham. That's what you think, look at they've lost to Everton, we'll get them. Probably thinking Liverpool don't lose that game.
If Arsenal win their game in hand, it's still 8 points. And now we're 20 whatever game, 21 games in. Each game that passes, I just don't see City catching them.
And to be honest with you, Suj, I think when I list them Arsenal away games to say that it's over or anything, no, I've said for a number of weeks, I think Arsenal win this league and I still do. But those away games means that there's going to be some tough encounters for Arsenal. But you sit here in 10 days after that big game next Wednesday, I think the gap will be 8 points because I think Arsenal will beat them.
Okay.
With the game being at the Emirates as well. Now, City are well capable going to Arsenal, and perhaps nerves will sit in with City. We know we'll have a lot of the ball and stuff, and City can go there and win, no doubt about it. But right now, I don't think so. They're fragile.
No.
They
Yeah.
don't look like title winners, and they don't. In a weird way, it's almost looking at them at the moment, and they're weak for what we expect in our standards of Manchester City. Do you still want 3 Man City players going into double game week? Yes, you do.
Yeah.
Bottom line. But picking the right one defensively, difficult. I think, like you said about Lewis, I've got Ake. Ake, I'm almost certain will play at Arsenal because I think he's the only one that's got the chance in the one-on-one duels with Saka.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure Ake will play out there. But then does he want to leave out Cole Walker with perhaps the pace of Martinelli on the other side? What's he going to do with the midfield to deal with Odegaard, who, if you pull Odegaard towards the right-hand side of the 10 position and Rodri's got to go with him, then Xhaka's your spare man. Once Arsenal punch it into Xhaka and get the ball between the lines, you're in massive trouble. Massive trouble. So do they sit Bernardo in deeper? Do they drag Lewis from right back? You have to remember, a lot of the stuff we analyse with Lewis is his position with the ball, not his position without the ball. And I didn't think Kulusevski, again, actually, I didn't think he had a great game for us yesterday. You know I love him. But every time Kulusevski got the ball, I thought he was going to destroy Lewis. And so if that's their solution, is to play Lewis against Saka, Saka will tear him apart.
Agreed. So
I think Ake will play left back against Arsenal, but then therefore Ake might not play against Villa, right?
Yeah.
And as someone who's gone for Ake, I'd obviously rather he played against Villa than against Arsenal. But there's 2 good fixtures for City afterwards as well. You can say Forest away, Bournemouth away. Yeah, the 2 away games. And Forest, again, mentioned the home record. But that's 2 good fixtures for City. And should City go to Arsenal and win, got to think that's going to focus some minds. And then there's potentially good run. Newcastle at home at the Etihad. Like, any fixture for City at the Etihad is a good fixture, really. Then Palace away. So, yeah, look, they can turn it round. They just need something that's going to spark it. And I actually thought, obviously, they beat Arsenal in the Cup, and they never looked like they were going to concede once they got in front. It looked like they'd gone back to their, we're going to control this and slow this, and we're in control, we're the better team. Almost like they were sending a bit of a message out. Wasn't good yesterday.
No.
Haaland is, he's part of this problem. But part of this problem is that City don't find his runs. But it's not as easy as just he makes the runs and people got to look for him straight away. Because you have to remember, this isn't how City have played. You'd have people like Aguero and Gabriel Jesus come and link the play and stuff. And if De Bruyne's not on the pitch, De Bruyne's the one who can really pick the pass and punch it, right? Even someone like Bernardo Silva, he's not one that's going to play a kind of 20-yard slide rule pass. It's De Bruyne or Mahrez, really. Or Foden if he plays. Even Grealish isn't that sort of player. He's someone who's going to directly run. By the way, have a look back around about 55th minute of the game where Guardiola tells Grealish to start diving. That's that's very visible on the TV. You can see it. You can lip read it. Guardiola says to Grealish, get the ball, run, fall down. Says it to him twice. Get the ball, run, fall down. Is what it is. It's fine. We know Jack Grealish is one of the best on the planet in terms of winning free kicks. So I don't blame. But does that tell you something about City's strategy? That he was happy for them to try and win free kicks? Because all them free kicks is when I was thinking, fine. Do you know what? Yeah. If an Ake or something gets on the back post and he gets something, fine. That's less of a concern for me. We've got some defensive aerial units can defend set pieces. Was that part of City's strategy? To win free kicks in the second half and deliver the ball into the box? They're not right.
No.
And if they don't fix it, United are more likely to catch in Arsenal than City. I think they will fix it because they've got too much quality. One of the things will fix it is putting De Bruyne back in the team. I think if they went to Arsenal next week and went, right, we're going 4-2-3-1, we're not pissing about with this. We're going Walker and Ake as the fullbacks. We're going Laporte and Diaz centre-back. We're going Bernardo in with Rodri, De Bruyne at 10, 2 wingers, Haaland up front, and suddenly you go, fuck me, that's Manchester City, and I'm scared of that.
But
I don't know if I don't know if he will. But Spurs, I warned you all on the deadline stream. Amount of people saying to me, "Shall I bench Harry Kane?" Please don't do that. Harry, any game, any time. Genuinely spent most of last night crying. I wouldn't. I'm not blubbing, but like genuinely such an emotional moment. I can now say why my son's called Harry. and feel okay about it. He can always have that record now. That was nice. Good performance all round. Emerson Royal, right wing back, outstanding. Defensively, really good against Jack Grealish, which is obviously much of a challenge. Romero played really well, bar the two bookings, which he just can't help himself. And it's going to give us a problem at Leicester. You should be very, very aware of that, because that's not the same. Davinson Sanchez will probably play at Leicester, and it's not to the same level. Although he does have better, arguably, recovery pace, and Iheanacho's the one who will want to run in behind if he plays again. Bentancur and Højbjerg midfield, great. Sonny, I thought, played all right, actually. Those 2 goals at Preston. He had moments where his first touch has not been right lately, but he had a couple of moments in the second half. We got head down and started running at people, and you thought, yeah, that's more like electric Sonny. Not that he looked like he was going to score in the game particularly. But look at our bench at yesterday. That's a big difference now. You're looking at the bench, and we've spent 40 million on Porro, doesn't get on. You got Richarlison sitting there, he doesn't get on. So I think he kept it as it was, Stiolini, because obviously Conte wasn't there, and actually the team were performing really well. Obviously he brought Basuma on very late in the end to just shut the game down and stuff. But yeah, as I said to you on Friday, I thought we'd get something, part because of City, but also very importantly for us, everyone's fit. And if that team's fit, it's a decent football team again. We've got some challenging fixtures coming up. We've got some very winnable fixtures coming up as well. And I think Newcastle will be aware of us now.
Cool. James, what we've got left coming up this week for the listeners?
You've got 2 Clash of the Correspondents. You've got tomorrow, Fulham versus Nottingham Forest with Dara Curran and Mark Southerns, and Thursday, Arsenal versus Manchester City with Adam Pritchard and Johnny Pringle. Wednesday, Sky Fantasy Football Podcast. I've got a guest for us, Suj.
Go on.
You don't know who, do you?
No, I meant to ask you, but I wanted to do it offline. So now tell me on air.
So if I could have asked one person this week, it would have asked.
No, there's a few. I would have on the short list.
Let's say someone who's doing extremely well in Sky Fantasy at the moment.
So I would have said Paul, but yeah, Paul is obviously recording with Fergie as well. So that's why I would have said not Paul. But then Luke obviously always does particularly well. Ian is doing really well, and he's going for Manager of the Month.
Right.
They were my 3. If you just said
now you've got loads of names.
Yeah,
I had to ask Paul because we keep mentioning him on the pod every week, right?
Yes, and ask him if he's shitting himself.
Yeah, Paul McNaughty's, I think I looked last night, it was about 31st or something, or he was on Saturday night.
64.
He was down to about 30th Saturday night.
6, something like that. He's 60 something. But
anyway,
yeah.
Fergie, Paul from the 3-for-1 Sky Pod with Fergie will be joining me on Wednesday for the Sky Pod. He'll be standing for you. Friday, I'm going to do not the deadline stream. 5:30 on Friday. It's not the deadline stream because I'm going to Leicester on Saturday, so there's no deadline stream this week. So I'm going to do it a night early. It'll have all the graphics and the usual, and I'll release it as an audio as well. On Patreon, we've got Q&A today. Tomorrow, I've got a UCL Fantasy Podcast with 3 of our patrons joining me. FF Finca, James Johnson, and FPL Rasmus joining me for a kind of roundtable UCL Fantasy preview ahead of the UCL starting next week. Wednesday, I'm doing an Ask James for patrons with a difference because there is no Tottenham this week. So since the West Ham side's not turning up, I'm doing an Ask James exclusively on Tottenham, whether it's nostalgic stuff, whatever. That'll be for all patrons to live stream on Wednesday. Time to be confirmed. Thursday, we got a quiz, Suj. Thought, record breakers seem to be a good theme after yesterday. Friday, we'll have our Game Week 23 preview for you as well. The advanced tier content will include a little bit of a chip talk update following that Fulham result on Wednesday night later in the week. And talking tactics this week, I'm going to be having a little closer look at how teams play out from the back from goal kicks, inspired by Villa fucking it up on Saturday.
Well, not just Villa, but Man City fucked it up a couple of times as well.
That was just good play from Tottenham, and you won't have heard me say that much this season.
No,
that was, to be fair, as much as we've been critical of City, that was our best all-round performance of the season, certainly off the ball.
Lovely, jubbly. James, that's a wrap for this episode of Planet FPL. If you want to support the show, you can head over to patreon.com/Planet FPL, where you can get access to prize leagues, a Slack channel. On top of that, we have all of the additional pods that James mentioned as well. But most importantly, stay safe, look after yourselves. Ciao for now.
Thanks, everyone. As always, play it your way and be nice to each other. Cue music, please, man child.